In on a prospective budget. We're here today to talk about an issue that I don't think gets enough attention and certainly hasn't got enough attention recently, and that's the Dwyer program. And we're joined not only by my colleagues in the New York State Senate, in the Republican Conference, but we're also joined by a former New York State Senator, current Congressman from New York's 1st Congressional District in Long Island, Congressman Lee Zeldin, who not only is a combat veteran from Iraq, Army veteran, but he was the one who started the Joseph P. Dwyer program in his Senate district, and now it's across all parts of the state, and it has become, I think, one of the most successful mental health related programs, certainly as it relates to veterans' mental health and suicide prevention in the state and maybe anywhere in the country. And it was through his efforts this program first got started and was first funded, and has now, again, been in every region of the state. As a former combat veteran myself, and as the former chair of the Mental Health and Developmental Disabilities Committee, I was proud to be able to bring this program to my district. It was not in Niagara and Orleans County when I was elected. It is today, and we also have brought it into additional counties in the Hudson Valley and across New York State. Up until maybe 2 weeks ago, the funding from last year's budget that funded the Dwyer program wasn't released. I raised this with Senator Krueger, as well as with the Commissioner of Mental Health during the budget hearings. The Senate Democrats had not sent the letter to release the funding, directing DOB to release the funding. They did this apparently 2 weeks ago. I think that's really unbelievable that in the middle of a pandemic where we know suicide rates are up, mental health crises are up, a program that literally is named for a veteran who took his own life, that is focused on suicide prevention, to the tune, by the way, of a whopping $3.75 million. Now, to people at home, that sounds like a lot of money. We could lose $3.75 million here, and we wouldn't know it. Apparently, we were going to balance the state budget on the backs of our veterans and save $3.75 million. So that money just has finally gone out, last year's money, and I have confirmation that it is being received by our counties who administer these programs currently. So that's a good thing. It shouldn't have taken a year to do that, but it's a good thing. But we're here today to talk about making this program permanent. Every year, the governor zeroes out this program, and it's part of the pawn. It's a pawn in the governor's and the budget dance that we do here in Albany. And there's a lot of things you could make this case for, but the truth is, for all the reasons we just talked about, our veterans should never be pawns in a budget negotiation or a budget game or a political dance that happens here in Albany. And again, that can be said for a lot of groups and a lot of programs, but I think everyone should agree that our veterans should never be used in that way. This program should be made permanent. And I also would like to say that I support, and I don't say this very often, so this is like breaking news, I support the Assembly plan to increase funding to over $6 million to expand this program to parts of the state that don't have Dwyer programs themselves. You know, I know it's convenient for us to certainly criticize the majorities when it's suited, but I'm a big believer that you also give credit where it's suited too, and that's one area where I think the Assembly One House gets it right. You're talking about an increase of, again, whopping $2 million, but the impact that this program has had to save the lives, it is no question to save the lives of our veterans, who, by recent accounts from the VA, take their lives by about, I think, over 20 a day, still take their lives. And that was pre-pandemic. So the need for this funding is real. The results of this program are real. And it's been my honor to help expand this program, to support this program. We're looking for permanency. We're looking for an increase in funding. Everyone talks about supporting veterans and marching in the parades. And there's a lot of lip service paid. And I think most people are very sincere. But this is a rare opportunity to put your money where your mouth is and back up and support our veterans. And I want to commend Congressman Zeldin for his continued efforts to make this a national program. He has worked to make this a national model across all 50 states because not only is he a veteran, but he continues to support veterans. And so it's my honor to bring him up to say a few words. Congressman.
Really is such an honor to be here for this purpose. I remember, if I was to reflect on 4 years here in the state Senate, hands down, the one item, the one memory that stands far and away above anything else that I'm proud of, that's done a great service to our nation's finest, our heroes, is the Senate Republican Conference, almost a decade ago, creating the PFC Joseph Dwyer Veteran Peer Support Program. That started in 4 counties. My home county of Suffolk was one of those counties. And the way that the veterans and the veteran advocates, the community came together to let that veteran with post-traumatic stress disorder or traumatic brain injury know that they shouldn't feel isolated and alone, that there's someone who lives around the block from them, a stranger willing to drop everything on a moment's notice to save that veteran's life. PFC Joseph Dwyer came home looking like he was in one piece. He had the mental wounds of war, and he lost his battle. But because every single year, the men and women who I'm very proud to be with today, fighting as hard as they can, all in for this funding, I get to hear stories of veterans talking about how this program saved their life. I get to learn about new counties standing up this program to save veterans in their county. And it has been an honor to help lead the effort to take a model here in New York that works, is proven successful, and try to expand it nationally. Every veteran in every corner of America deserves to have that resource available to them. In Suffolk County, it's not just peer-to-peer support now. You have access to training horses, or maybe you can meet America's Vet Dogs in Smithtown and you can get a pet, or it's fishing. And the way everyone has come together, not to just medicate that veteran in need, but to find other ways to overcome the mental wounds of war. This program saves lives. And the men and women who are here fighting so passionately for this funding, and anyone in this building on any side of the aisle, it does not matter, fighting all in on this effort, thank you. When I first got to Congress, veteran service organizations, their national commanders would talk about the need for the Dwyer program. They didn't really know what peer support was, but what they knew was that in New York, there was a model that was working. And if you go back and look at the American Legion National Commander's testimony from just a couple weeks ago in front of a joint session of Congress of the Veteran Committee in the Senate, the Veteran Affairs Committee in the House, that national commander was advocating for the Dwyer program to be national. The veterans shouldn't have to come here every year begging for this funding. Why do they do it? Is because an executive budget comes out from the governor proposing to defund this program. Why? Why are you making those veterans come up here begging for funds that save lives? At what point is it proven to work? At what point do you get emotionally invested in that service that's being provided to want to do something about it? So it should be permanent. Every county, all the veterans advocates in New York should know that next year they're not going to have to come to Albany and beg for this funding. The year after that, they don't have to come to Albany and beg for this funding, because right now, with this opportunity, with a state budget that has to get passed right now, this legislature seized an opportunity and made this funding permanent. I'll just close with a quick story. Last night I was at dinner and I called a woman named Olivia. She's a young girl who lives in my congressional district. She's a member of the NJROTC. She's one of my nominees to the United States Naval Academy in Annapolis. I got to call and break great news to her because she's been waiting to hear back from the Naval Academy. And I got to tell her that the United States Naval Academy in Annapolis is offering her a 4-year appointment, class of 2025. And her dad was right there on the phone. It was on speaker, and they were so emotional about it. What kind of a duty do we owe to Olivia and her generation? After going through an entire life, I mean, we have a life, for many of us, our lives can be broken into 2 parts, before 9/11 and after. For people right now who are applying to United States Naval Academy and West Point, our service academies, all they have known is post 9/11. They've seen the deployments, they've seen the deaths and people who have been injured. They've seen the cost, and yet their hand is raised and they're willing to serve, and they should know that we here in this state capitol have their backs. And Senator Ort, for your service on so many levels and this conference, our veterans should know that this conference always has their backs. They will be here now, they'll be back next year if the vets have to beg for it, but this conference will do everything in their power to make sure that they don't have to and the money is there. So thank you for inviting me up to Albany to be part of today's press conference. It really is a privilege. Thank you for fighting a good fight, for your passion, your patriotism, for fighting for Olivia and those who are off to serve, knowing that you all will have their backs day in and day out.
Thank you very much, Congressman. And if they do have to come back and beg, they're not going to beg alone. They will find our conference will stand right there and beg and advocate right alongside them, as we should. But hopefully, if we do the right thing, that won't have to happen. And hopefully it'll be permanent. I want to bring up 2 of our members to say a few words. These are members, both members new to our Senate family, new to our Senate conference, but both who are well-versed in this program, who've been very supportive of this program and supportive of our veterans in general. First up, also from Long Island, we'll keep it local, will be Senator Alexis Wyke.
Thank you, and thank you so much for being here today, and thank you so much for Congressman Zeldin, whose shoes I am filling because he once held the seat that I am in today. And that's a big order.
Big upgrade. That's a big upgrade.
So I want to just say thank you to all of our veterans who are our heroes. I have spent my career making sure that I support veterans locally and nationally because these are the individuals who without question went out and fought for our country and our freedom. And it's a thankless job, and yet no matter how often we try to thank them, they never seem to get the support that they deserve. This is one of those issues where we need to step up and we need to make sure that we're supporting them. I want to thank Congressman Zeldin for bringing this legislation across and for the expansion of it. This is something that we need to make sure we pick up the ball. We need to make sure that it is properly funded, that funding is expanded, and that the program continues. It is not right that with all of the things that veterans have to fight for, that they need to fight for funding for a program where they peer tutor or peer assist one another. This is a vital program. In a year where we've seen so many demands for mental health assistance, this is one of those programs where we have veterans helping veterans. They need this assistance. It's not just our schools and our communities that are struggling with mental health issues. This is a time where we've seen our veterans also who are suffering from health issues as well, who have been isolated, who've been home, and that's not a healthy combination when you're dealing with things like PTSD or other mental health issues due to combat or whatever it is. This is a time where we need to make sure that we're stepping up and we're supporting our veterans and that we're going to make sure this funding is in the budget from now on. They should not have to ask for this. This is something that we should be doing for them. And I encourage my colleagues on the other side of the aisle to make sure that they're doing this as well. This is a battle worth fighting, and we need to make sure that the funding is there and that veterans do not have to ask for this every year. It needs to be put in the budget, and it needs to stay there. Thank you so much to all of our veterans, and thank you so much for our veterans here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Well said. Next up to offer some remarks is Senator Dan Steck. Senator Steck, since Congressman Zeldin and I are both Army veterans, I thought it was important to have someone from another branch here. Not equal, but someone from another branch. So we had We had Senators Dan Steck. He's a Navy veteran. He serves on the Veterans, Military Affairs and Homeland Security Committee. He's been a long supporter of this program when he was in the Assembly. He's a great addition to our conference. And with the exception of one day a year when the Army plays Navy in the football game, I consider him not only a colleague, a friend, but certainly someone who I'd be proud to wear a uniform alongside. Senator Steck.
Thanks, Leader, for that generous introduction. Out of respect to the congressman and the leader and their military service, I'll speak a little slowly. I told my mom today that I was going to be speaking at this event, and the subject, she made me promise to leave the Navy vernacular behind me. So I'll try to keep the engine room and the A Division anecdotes at a bare minimum here. How a nation can measure its value and its values can be measured on how it treats its veterans. I can think of, and I addressed this on the floor of the Senate the other day on another subject having to do with the questionable humaneness of our treatment of our prisoners in our correctional facilities. And I recounted the story that on the cruiser that I served on in the Persian Gulf during Desert Storm, there was 12 of us in a room about 12 feet wide and 20 feet long. Prisoners today in any of our correctional facilities have more personal space and more personal gear than my colleagues, my friends, and fellow sailors did on the ship that we served on defending the country. We were there on our own. We were all volunteers. We were givers. We were pursuing what most would say is one of the most noblest causes that we could: service to our country, defense of our nation. And juxtapose that to the concern that we seem to have here, the obsession we have here with people that have been takers from society, and bending over backwards for their needs and making sure that they have all kinds of contact with it. I went weeks without contact with my family when I was in the service, and no one ever took a shot at me. That was just the nature, and we signed up for it, and I got paid for it, so I'm not complaining. But when I come here and I see that we're spending $100 million on public campaign finance, $400 million to Hollywood and tax credits, tens of millions of dollars for legal aid for people that are here illegally, and then year in and year out, the governor zeroes out $4 million in his budget and makes the entire veteran community of the state of New York come panhandle their own government for mental health services when 20 people a day are taking their own lives through the service. I know families who lost a child to service-related suicide back home. I know families whose kids were killed Easter weekend in Iraq from my district. These are people that have bent over backwards, and they've done everything for their country, and they've asked for nothing in return. But I can think of no greater disservice we could do than to take away mental health funding. Frankly, it's an embarrassment to the state of New York that this is the state of affairs here, that every year we have to beg for this funding. The governor should be ashamed for zeroing out this funding. Ashamed. I dare him to not put this $4 million or $6 million in the case of the Assembly's budget back into the budget. You want to talk about an insult to people that we should be bending over backwards for. It's hurtful to me. So I'm proud of the conference. I'm certainly proud of our former Senate colleague and Congressman Lee Zeldin for his leadership on this very issue. It has great value. Veterans don't open up easily to each other. Veterans know and respect and trust one another. And so a peer-to-peer program like the Joseph P. Dwyer, where they can talk to somebody that understands, has walked a mile in their boots or sailed over some of the same seas that they have, that gets them and understands, and they can talk and they can have that shortcut understanding amongst each other that a civilian would never understand. But most importantly, that they have the trust that they can open up to. And if that's what it takes to send, if I had a nickel for every time I had to hear a colleague talk about another bill, and including at the beginning of COVID, the governor said, if we save one life, well, here's a classic example. If we save one veteran's life, but on a $200 billion budget, $4 million for veterans' mental health is frankly a pittance. And we should all be racing to make sure that it's there, and we should make it permanent so that we never have to have another press conference on this subject again. Leader, thank you very much.
Thank you, Tony. That's a great way to close. I just want to thank all my colleagues here. I want to thank the Congressman both for starting this program and for continuing to be here. You know, he's not here anymore, but he hasn't forgotten the importance of this program, because his commitment to veterans isn't just lip service. It's not just, I did this so it was a nice press hit. He really cares, and he continues to fight and continues to support, and that's why he's here today. And for those that don't know, this is a non-clinical program. Non-clinical. There is so much in the clinical mental health space, and I know from experience in that committee, that doesn't work. There are so many problems when we talk about mental health. There's so many challenges in trying to prevent suicide, from trying to reach folks who need the services. This is one of the few programs that does work. Why we have to debate the funding every year is beyond me. And that just kind of sums up Albany a lot of times. We try to fix things that aren't broken, and we can't fix the things that are broken. But this is definitely one of those things that it's not broken, this works, we should expand the funding, we should adopt this Assembly One House, we should make it permanent, and you have the Republican Conference on board with that. And again, Congressman Zeldin, I want to thank you for your leadership and your service. And with that, we will certainly take any questions. Yes, I believe it increased it a little bit, Dan, from 3.75 to north of 4 million, but the Assembly went up to 6. And I think basically that's just more, expanded it to more counties and more parts of the state that didn't currently have a Dwyer program.